A man is pinned to the wall of a moving train, a blade driven through his shoulder, blood soaking through his uniform. The creature standing in front of him isn't fully human, it never was, and it's smiling, not because the fight is over, because it knows something the man doesn't. The daughter they took isn't just a hostage. She's the reason all of this was set in motion. She's the reason his entire family was destroyed, and she's the reason he was lured out here in the first place. But to understand why they needed her alive, we have to go back to where this world began. At the beginning of the movie, we are introduced to a world that looks nothing like the one we know. Humanity did not evolve in peace. For as long as anyone can remember, vampires have existed, not the romantic brooding kind, but creatures of pure predatory instinct, built to kill and consume. The war between humans and vampires stretched across generations, leaving nothing behind but ash and devastation. Civilizations crumbled. The earth itself was scarred beyond recognition. Facing total extinction, what remained of humanity retreated behind enormous walled cities, governed entirely by the church. The church didn't just offer spiritual guidance, it ran everything. Law, order, economy, loyalty, all of it flowed from the clergy. And in their most desperate hour, the church created their most extreme weapon, the priests. These were not ordinary soldiers. They were warriors enhanced, trained, and spiritually sharpened into instruments of destruction, each one capable of taking down vampires that would slaughter entire battalions of regular men. The priests turned the tide. They hunted the vampires into near extinction, forced the survivors onto controlled reservations, and handed humanity its first real victory in centuries. And then, the church disbanded them. With the vampire threat apparently neutralized, the priests were stripped of their authority and folded back into a society that had already begun to forget what they'd sacrificed. No fanfare, no monuments in their honor, just a return to civilian life, haunted, directionless, and disposable. We follow one of these forgotten warriors. He has no name spoken freely. People simply call him Priest. He lives a gray, hollow life inside Cathedral City, one of the great walled metropolises still under the church's iron grip. Surveillance is everywhere. Obedience is mandatory. The church's doctrine echoes through every corridor. To go against the church is to go against God. Priest moves through this city like a ghost. He's not bitter in any obvious way, but the weight behind his eyes tells a different story. One night, he steps into an automated confessional, a sterile, mechanical booth where a holographic Monsignor listens to his sins without real empathy, and what he confesses reveals everything. He's been having dreams, memories of the war, moments where he couldn't save the people beside him, and beneath all of it, a creeping, terrifying doubt about the faith he built his entire identity around. The automated priest gives him scripted prayers and sends him back out into the world, same as always. But the world is about to collapse around him. Meanwhile, far outside the city walls, in the harsh and unprotected wasteland, a family lives on a remote outpost, trying to carve out something resembling a normal life. Owen checks radiation levels in the soil, hoping they might finally be able to grow crops. His wife Shannon moves quietly through their modest home, and their daughter Lucy, sharp, restless, and suffocating under rules she doesn't fully understand, has just come back from a trip into town that her father strictly forbade. The argument between Lucy and Owen is familiar and human. She feels like a prisoner. He tells her that out here in the wasteland beyond the city walls, the rules exist for survival, not control. Shannon steps in, calls them both to the table, and for one brief moment there is peace. Then the ground shakes. Owen goes to the window and sees them, vampires moving in a coordinated pack toward the house. Not wanderers, not strays, a deliberate assault. He orders the women underground immediately. Shannon gets Lucy into the hidden hatch beneath the floor, tells her not to make a sound no matter what she hears, and closes it above her. What Lucy hears next through the floor will stay with her for the rest of the film. Gunshots. Her parents' voices, first fighting, then screaming, then silence. And then the hatch opens. Someone steps in. Back in Cathedral City, Priest is returning to his apartment when a man literally collides with him in the corridor. This is Hicks, a young sheriff from the wasteland town near Owen's outpost. He's been tracking Priest down for days. His message is short and devastating. Priest's brother Owen has been attacked. Shannon is dead. Lucy has been taken by vampires. Hicks explains that Lucy has always spoken of her uncle as a legend, the best there ever was, and he intends to go after her, but he's asking Priest to come with him. Priest doesn't say yes, not yet. He does what the system trained him to do. He goes through proper channels. He requests an audience with the ruling clergy. Monsignor Aurelius, the most powerful figure in the church's inner circle, listens to his account and then laughs. Not nervously, genuinely dismisses it. No vampire has left the reservations, he insists. What Priest is describing must be the work of wasteland bandits. The sheriff was mistaken. There is no vampire threat. Monsignor Chamberlain, a more conflicted member of the clergy, clearly wants to help but can't override Aurelius publicly. Priest pushes harder. He questions the Monsignor's logic, challenges the church's version of reality, and is immediately reminded that questioning the clergy's authority is among the gravest offenses a priest can commit. Disobey, and he will be excommunicated. Everything his life was built on, gone. Priest goes quiet. Then he walks out of the meeting, enters the bar where Chamberlain tracks him down for one final warning, and in the time it takes for police to arrive and try to restrain him, Priest disassembles every officer in the room without breaking a sweat. The decision has been made. He's breaking his vow, and he doesn't look back. We are then shown what's happening to Lucy on the other end of this story, and it is deeply unsettling. She's being kept in a cage aboard a massive, fast-moving train cutting through the wasteland. One of the vampires taunts her through the bars, but then a figure appears that silence is everything. His name is Black Hat. He moves with a quiet authority that's different from the other vampires. More deliberate, more intelligent, and infinitely more dangerous. He tells Lucy she's in the cage for her own protection, and when she threatens him, tells him that her uncle, the priest, will come for him. Black Hat doesn't flinch. He smiles, because that is exactly what he is counting on. Priest rides out of Cathedral City into the wasteland. He reaches his brother's homestead and finds it destroyed, furniture overturned, windows shattered, everything covered in the evidence of violence. He picks up a family photo from the wreckage. Hicks arrives, and together they head to the nearest town. Priest visits Owen in a medical facility, barely alive. The conversation between them is one of the most quietly devastating scenes in the film. Owen doesn't ask why Priest left and never came back. He already knows the answer. Instead, he tells Priest that he couldn't save Shannon because he didn't have his gifts. Priest tells him the truth, that Owen gave Shannon a life Priest never could have. She never forgot him. Owen's only request before he closes his eyes is that Priest find Lucy and end every last one of them. Owen doesn't make it. The search begins at the nearest vampire reservation, a desolate compound where the surviving vampire population was corralled after the war. But when Priest and Hicks arrive, something is immediately wrong. The perimeter guards are gone. The place is crawling with unauthorized familiars, humans who have voluntarily bonded themselves to vampires, waiting to be infected. Priest corners a familiar and tells him exactly what will happen if he doesn't give up information. A group of familiars launches an attack. Hicks fights his way outside. Priest handles the ones inside, and when the dust settles, they have one terrified familiar left. He tells them Lucy was taken west, and then adds, with something close to fear in his own voice, that Priest doesn't even know what is coming. Before they can press him further, the sun goes down, and the vampires come out of their coffins. What follows is a brutal sequence. Priest and Hicks fighting through the dark against creatures faster and stronger than anything Hicks has ever faced. At one point, Priest pulls out what appears to be a Bible, begins to read, and then produces hidden weapons from between the pages, using them with lethal efficiency. They fight their way out alive, but only barely. West. Lucy was taken west, and Priest knows exactly what's out there. The Solamira Hive, a location from the war he has never forgotten and never wanted to revisit. As they ride toward it, a small but critical scene plays out elsewhere. The traveling salesman, who Hicks ran out of town for selling fraudulent vampire weapons, has made a very different business arrangement. He delivers information directly to Black Hat, Priest's arrival, his connection to Lucy, his direction of travel. In exchange, he expects payment. Black Hat listens, then drinks his blood anyway. The salesman becomes a familiar. Information has a price, but so does betrayal. Priest and Hicks reach the Solamira Hive as night falls. Inside, the trauma is immediate for Priest. Flashback images of the last time he was here, the trap that was sprung, the men he couldn't save. He lights the hive and tells Hicks to shoot anything that moves and isn't him, then drops into the tunnels alone. But he's not alone for long. A figure attacks him from the shadows, and when they both recover, Priest recognizes her. Priestess, a former warrior from his unit, sent by the clergy to bring him back. Dead or alive, she doesn't reach for him. She tells him that she came to warn him, not drag him in. She has questions of her own, because nothing about this hive makes sense. An abandoned location shouldn't have a guardian protecting it. They fight the guardian together, alongside Hicks, and put it down, and then they find the reason it was there. Deep in the hive, past the original war damage, is a new section. Rebuilt. Expanded. A breeding ground on a scale none of them have ever seen. Thousands of spaces for vampires. All of them empty. The army isn't here. It's already gone. The full picture assembles itself fast. The hive empties out before sunrise, which means the vampires are traveling by train, moving at night, staying underground during daylight hours, and the railway out of the wasteland leads directly to the walled cities. The entire operation, the attack on Owen's family, the kidnapping of Lucy, luring Priest out of the city, was never really about any one person. It was about clearing the board, drawing the priests out of the cities, getting them into the wasteland where they could be eliminated, and leaving the civilian population completely unprotected when the army arrived. Priestess has dynamite. She'll blow the rail line before the train can reach the cities. Priest and Hicks will board the train and get Lucy out. Simple. Except nothing that comes next is simple. On the train, Hicks moves through the cars from the back while Priest drops onto the roof. Black Hat is already waiting for him up top like he knew exactly where Priest would land. What Black Hat reveals changes everything. He was once a priest himself, one of their own, taken during the war and turned by the vampire queen into something new, a hybrid. He carries the strength of a vampire, but walks in daylight. He offers Priest a choice. Join him, return to the cities together, reshape the world as brothers. Priest refuses. They fight across the roof of the moving train. Black Hat consistently finding the edge, stronger, faster, and frustratingly aware of every move Priest is trained to make. Below, Hicks navigates through car after car until he finds Lucy being dragged away by a familiar. He moves to intercept, and then Priest punches his way through a wall into their car, buying them seconds. The vampires flood the car. Hicks blows holes in the ceiling, letting sunlight pour in and scatter them. But Black Hat appears and throws Hicks off the train entirely. Then he drives a blade through Priest's shoulder and pins him to the wall. Lucy, left unguarded for a moment, gets her hands on something, and in that moment of chaos, Black Hat tells her the truth. The man fighting to save her is her father. Not her uncle, her father. He gave her to Owen when she was a newborn because the clergy took him before before she was old enough to know his face. She has been his sacrifice from the very beginning. Black Hat recovers, drags Lucy off the train, and leaves Priest to burn. But Priest tears himself free from the wall. He finds them at the front of the train, just as Hicks, who tracked down a familiar's motorcycle, is racing toward them from the wasteland. And then Priest disappears on the rail line ahead. She couldn't blow the tracks. The detonator was dismantled by a familiar before she could fire it. So she did the only other thing she could. She mounted the explosives on her bike, aimed it at the train, and jumped. Priest grabs Lucy and jumps an instant later. The train detonates. Black Hat's hat lands in the dust. The vampire army burns. What comes after is brief but necessary. Priest walks into the middle of a church service, approaches Monsignor Aurelius mid-sermon, and drops a vampire head at his feet. He tells him to look outside the city walls at the burning wreckage of the train. He tells him the vampire queen was not among the dead. He tells him the war has not ended. It has just restarted. Aurelius calls him a fraud and a menace. Priest walks out. He meets Priestess outside the city. She tells him she's already contacted the others. If you made it this far without subscribing to Muvora Recaps, that's honestly on you at this point. We break down films like this every week, the ones with layers, the ones with gut punches, hiding inside the action. Hit subscribe so you never miss one, and drop a comment below. When Black Hat revealed who Lucy's father really was, did that land the way it should have? Let us know. We read every single one.